All right. Well, welcome to the Bradenton Kiwanis Club. I'm glad to see everybody here. I got on a little early, and we actually had people joining at 11:30, which is kind of cool. So just get things started. I know we got a couple of things to talk about today. Should be a good meeting, interesting meeting. And Dick Gross, could you please do our invocation?
As we prepare for the day and for our meeting, this calls to mind those that are not fortunate as we are and not able to be in attendance. And dear Lord, as we go through this pandemic, let us remember that you are our maker and our keeper, and you will see us through all this. We ask that you bless this food that we're all partaking of, hopefully, in thy name. In Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you
so much for that. And it will have, find him, Mac. Are you still with us?
I am.
You like to share the announcements?
I can do that. We had a really good turnout at the Kids Against Hunger this past Saturday. We had 2 full groups. We had some kids from the Manatee High Key Club that came and helped us out in the afternoon. And I think we're one day shy of fulfilling our 50,000 meal commitment. That's going to take place on October the 3rd. We have a morning session and an afternoon session, both of which are pretty much filled mostly with the Manatee Sunrise folks, but I know Neil has been putting in his time and might be looking for a break if somebody else wants to do it, and we might be able to get a few other ones in there. It's always a good time, and we get a lot accomplished. So we're just about done, and I think they're looking at the possibility of doing some more in the next couple months. So looking forward to that. We also had the club satellite that was working out at the fish preserve this last Saturday and a couple of days last week when they didn't get rained out. Alex, would you like to just say something about how you did?
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We actually had I think total throughout the whole time we had 5 or 6 Kiwanians from both the main club and the satellite club, and then it was probably about 10 key clubbers that came last Thursday, and we filled the dumpster and they picked it up. They actually picked it up this past weekend, so that was good, and it was a good project. I think everyone enjoyed it. I mean, the only thing is that the only change I'm going to make for the next time we do this project, I'm going to do it, in November or December. So it was pretty rainy and it was pretty warm and pretty buggy. So I think it'll be a better, comfier project then. So we'll wait a few months and then we'll do it again because it's always needs to be done out there. So I appreciate everyone's help who helped with it.
All right. Well, thank you. And Neil, did you want to say anything about the projects or anything else going on?
I don't think so. I just want to thank everybody for their participation these last few sessions, for the Meals on Wheels event, for the Kids Against Hunger. Again, we'll take a little break before we do some more, but I know the Sunrise Club wants to continue to do those. And as long as we're only doing one line at a time, we have to schedule 2 sessions a day on the weekends. So be looking for those in a couple of months, and because we're going to commit to doing probably another 50,000 meals this upcoming fiscal year. So we'll be looking to have some more opportunities available for everybody. But thank you all for all you have done so far. It's been great sessions up to this point.
All right, thank you. And I think other than that, we have a couple of guests with us. Well, kind of guests. One of them, Karen Gray, is stepping in now as the corporate member for the Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and she's spoken to us before. I think we've seen her face once. Maybe sometime, Karen, if you get a chance, you could let us see you again. But would you like to say hi? Mr. Karen there? Okay, well, I'll move on then real quick.
I have her muted, but she does have her video.
Yes, I was eating. That's why I wasn't
I'm
showing
sorry,
myself. So
I'm sorry.
hello.
Yeah, that's what we're all doing. But why don't you guys give us a little background on what you're doing?
Well, I participated with Neil at the food bank, and I really thoroughly enjoyed that. That was wonderful, and I look forward to doing that again. And as I've spoken before, I'm with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm the community program coordinator, and this role is new for me, being a part of the Kiwanians on hands-on. And so I'm just looking forward to continuing and being a part of this.
Well, we appreciate you being here and doing what you're doing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we also have a prospective member who also helped us out on Saturday with the food packing, Scott McAllister. Would you kind of give us a little introduction about who you are and where you're from?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I also participated on Saturday. It was a great experience. I was really impressed. I am the new executive director at Freedom Village, a senior living community here in Bradenton. I've been here for a couple of weeks. I've been all over the place in my career in the last 35 years. And I quickly realized somewhere along the way that the executive director, general manager, whatever you want to call me, as well as the community, has to get involved in the local community. I have 400 plus seniors here that, especially under COVID, I would say it's fair to say they have some cabin fever. And I'm looking for every opportunity I possibly can have to direct these seniors into opportunities to volunteer in the greater Bradenton area. And that's why I would like to join your organization. And also, just personally, I felt great leaving there on Saturday. I felt like I made an impact in someone else's lives. That's my story.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate getting a chance to meet you. And I know that Sharon's gotten you the paperwork so we can fill that out. And I'm going to sponsor you for this. So we hope to see you at more and more of these events and during our meetings.
Definitely.
Yep. Thank you so
I
much.
look forward to it.
All right. All right, Mike, I'm back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mac, and welcome guest. Dave Grantham has an announcement you'd like to make.
Yes, for those that might have received an email from Terry or myself this past week or 10 days regarding your dues, please get those paid. We've got a cutoff of Friday, this coming Friday, September 25th, to avoid any potential membership issues. So please get that money into us. Here's my list. It's getting, okay, it's fading in and out, but it's getting shorter every day. So thank you. And we just want it totally cleared before the end of the month. So thanks again.
Thank you, Dave. And now I would like to introduce Judge Gilbert Smith, the page out of Kiwanis history.
1936 continued to be an exciting year for the Bradenton Kiwanis Club as it went forward on its plan to build a trailer camp in Bradenton. The year was also full of projects and good programs. The Bradenton Herald and sometimes the Sarasota Herald Tribune continued to publish articles on each club meeting, thereby keeping the history of the club in front of the public. The club was making news several times during the week. On February 14th, 1936, that's Valentine's Day, a special session of the Bradenton City Council on the construction of the trailer camp was first on the agenda. As requested, the club had now prepared a written proposal to present to the City Council. An important part of that proposal was that members of the club agreed to raise the $10,000 for the initial investment. After a discussion by Mayor Sparks, a motion was made and the City Council unanimously approved the motion. Members of the club and other people in attendance gave a round of applause. The club and the City of Bradenton entered into a written lease in which the club leased the land for $1 a year under the terms agreed upon. Now, leaders in the community were excited about the project and predicted that the success of the trailer camp would benefit the entire community. Since so many businesses benefited from tourists and so many tourists were traveling with trailers, it only made sense for Bradenton to focus on attracting more of them to the area. On March 17th, 1936, the club filed a new corporate charter for the Kiwanis Club of Bradenton, Inc. to incorporate under Florida law. And as stated in the charter, the object of the club was to sponsor, promote, and carry out as an organization through committees and collectively plans and objectives for benevolent and charitable purposes, particularly the education and nourishment of underprivileged children. Then on June 26, 1936, club member Circuit Judge William Thomas Harrison approved and issued the corporate charter as an order of the court. At this time, the local circuit judge approved all corporations. Now on April 24th, 1936, at a ceremony at the location on 14th Street, after speeches by President Blaylock, R.M. Bell, and the mayor of Bradenton, they broke ground on the trailer camp to be known as the Bradenton Trailer Camp. Then the next day, construction began with 8 trees and many scrubs and palmettos removed. Eventually, 200 trees would be removed from the site. From that date forward, the topic of every club luncheon meeting included a report on the progress of the construction of the camp. And it did not take long for the members to raise all the money they needed for the camp. Besides reports on the trailer camp, some of the great programs during 1936 included the increase in life insurance being sold during the Depression years, the need for good citizenship, the renovation of the Kiwanis hut and Kiwanis cabins at Camp Flying Eagle, and an interesting program on modern honeymoon. On July 15, 1936, Homer Birch was elected manager of the camp. He became the first on-site manager of the park, and over the years, many outstanding men served as the resident manager of the camp, including Bobby Broiler, Nelson Miller, Al Beeler, and Bert South. On September 29, 1936, at the regular luncheon meeting, Dr. McDuffie was elected as the 1937 president, along with Whiten Holmes Troutman as vice president. And then on October 9, 1936, just 5 months after construction began, Bradenton Trailer Camp was complete with the exception of just a few minor work to be done. There were 200 spaces for trailers to park, each space being 20 by 30 feet. There would also be 2 showers and wash houses at select locations in the camp. Then on Monday afternoon of November 1st, the camp was formally open for business. The trailer camp was a success within a few days because it was full. And it was not long before members were discussing expanding the camp on the other property available for development. As predicted by many leaders in the community, the trailer camp accomplished exactly what was expected. It encouraged people to move to Manatee County and become permanent residents and lease or purchase other property in the area. One of Bradenton's most important projects was completed by the Bradenton Kiwanis Club. That same year, Kiwanis International began a service project titled Circle K to provide an opportunity to capable, ambitious, and worthy young men to acquire a college education by assisting them when necessary with their financial problems, by means of a scholarship fund, if available, or securing part-time employment. By the end of 1936, the club had inducted just a few new members, including Buzz Zoller. 1936 was a great year, and those years would continue.
There we go. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Very, very interesting. And again, love hearing those names that I've heard in the past, you know, the Bert Smith Award and whatnot. So appreciate that. Our program today is kind of 2 parts. One part is a discussion on the club getting back together on an optional basis back at the hall beginning sometime in October. And then the other half of the discussion will be on some interesting situation that some of our kids are in, and this would be brought to us from Dawn. So leading those discussions is our very own Christy Cardello.
I don't know about leading, but.
Facilitating?
There we go. That's a better word.
All right.
So we, you know, as exec, we are hearing about other groups that are starting to open up to meeting in person. And I know I get emails with the people asking me, what are we thinking of doing? What are we planning to do? So I thought it might be good to have, an open discussion, not a debate, but an open discussion about what people are comfortable with or not, and to kind of lay out what we're thinking we're going to do, just to make sure that everybody has some input to it. We realize that not everyone is comfortable meeting yet and may not be for a while. Well, we may have other members that are ready to do that. So what we are thinking that we would do is begin meetings. We have a limitation on the number of people that can meet live as well. We will have a capacity limitation. And I'm going to have Janine talk in a minute about some of the limitations that are there, some of the things we've got to figure out how to work around. But then also be able to offer the Zoom meeting still, or if you don't feel comfortable coming to a live meeting, or you're just not in town and you want to participate at lunchtime, that we're still going to have that Zoom availability. Well, you'll still be a part of the meeting. And we may keep doing that going forward. If we see that it's working well and people as they come and go that can't make it to the theater want to participate via Zoom, we may continue to do it. So we're gonna, keep that part of it open-ended. But first, I was gonna have Janine share with everyone just a little bit of the logistics and how this will come together. So
Christy, this is Andy Meyer.
Brett's doing stretch. Yes, Andy.
While we're waiting on Janine, I just was curious, are we getting any guidance from Kiwanis International on are we allowed to meet under the Kiwanis banner from their point of view?
I don't even know if we've even gotten any guidance from Kiwanis International. I mean, separate 501c6, but I don't know that there are things that we get from Kiwanis International as a organization that look to them for guidance. I don't know that this would be one of them because they're overarching all over the world, whereas each community is probably different. More importantly, we need to make sure we're in the CDC guidelines and we're in communication with Dr. Bensi, which is why we had her come and present, mostly to alleviate any questions or to understand the point of view of the CDC rules and what we need to follow. But we can go look and see. I haven't seen them send anything out though. And if the officers know of anything, please speak up.
Okay, my apologies. Christy, what was the question?
You wanted to know if Kiwanis International had sent out any guidance. I haven't seen anything.
I would assume they're going to be like all of the other national organizations, and they're not going to, because it is specific to each state has their own mandates, as well as then some counties themselves, which in those states have a higher level. So I'm sure that for risk reasons, and Dave's going to answer this, they're going to tell you you need to follow the CDC guidelines and rules and regulations of the community in which you're meeting. Dave?
I like that answer, Andy.
Is it my turn?
Say that again?
Yeah.
We did check with the insurance carrier, the international insurance carrier, and they are putting absolutely no limitations on things, as long as we're following guidelines.
So Janine, would you go over some of the logistics of us coming back to a meeting at the theater and what we'll have to do?
Yes. So that just for a comfort level for everybody on the call, we're part of a national organization of Events Alliance. Many people still see us as a small theater. I think they forget that we're a performing arts center with a ballroom, a catering kitchen, various theaters, transitional rooms. So we're part of the same organization and the same meetings that people from the NFL, NHL, basketball, anybody who has event facilities belongs to. So I wanted to give everybody a comfort level that we also have specific guidelines different in each one of our rooms appropriate to the way that the meeting or the show or the gathering of people will be done in that room. So you can imagine as soon as we introduce food in a meeting, that changes the dynamics. So Kiwanis Hall, when serving food, is just like a restaurant setting, and we're at 50% capacity. That means we'd open up the wall in order to meet everybody, and that would be no more than 3 people at each table. When you come in the main doors, okay, recommendation is to take each person's temperature, as well as provide each person who enters hand sanitizer right at that moment. No more than 3 people can ride the elevator at a time. No more than 2 people can be in the restrooms upstairs at a time. Masks are worn 100% of the time upon entering the Performing Arts Center until you sit at your table with your boxed lunch. You are allowed to remove your mask while you're eating. As soon as you stand up for any reason to go to the restroom, to go to the podium to make any remarks or any of those types of things, a mask must be worn. So from the guideline standpoint and the capacity, hopefully that gives you some insight. I don't know if it's appropriate, but then I can answer any questions.
So I will say, you know, I know Janine that her tone is all business because it has to be. So I know she can smile too. So, you know, I will say this, I know that we have people that want to have meetings where we're in person. And I know we have people that want to be able to participate in the meetings from home still. So we're going to provide both. I will say that the meetings in person, that we have to follow the rules and we're going to have to be responsible for doing it. The rules, the things that Janine just explained, we're going to put them in writing. We're going to send them out to everyone, and everybody just, you know, you guys are all adults. We just have to follow the guidelines. And as long as we can do that and we can behave, we can wear a mask, not under our nose, over our nose, and do what we're supposed to, then I think we can have our meetings in person. There's no reason why we cannot, as long as we keep the 6 feet foot distance from each other. And, you know, exec is talking about having a way for people to tell us ahead that they're going to be participating in the meeting so that we can manage the number of people and keep it at that 50% capacity. Janine has been very kind in helping us figure out how to upgrade our computers so that we can conduct the Zoom meeting where what I like to call the Brady Bunch gets to be on the screen, where everybody sitting at the tables will be able to see the Brady Bunch talking and pointing at each other. And we're going to have a camera where the people at home can see what's going on in the room. So we're trying our best to figure out the logistics of making sure that whether you're on Zoom or at the live meeting, that you can participate. Now, that being said, I know the people on exec with me really well. Yeah, give me a minute, Janine. We're going to screw this up and we're going to beg for forgiveness. So, but if everybody's intent and our heart's in the right place and everybody, you know, I figured having Janine explain it to everyone and everyone knows what the rules are, that, you know, we're all responsible adults. We need to do the right thing. We're probably going to have to we'll probably have club members volunteer to be monitors to make sure that we're keeping track of how many are in the bathrooms or how many are getting in the elevators, just to be careful because it's hard to know. I think we can do this, and it'll be nice to see each other. It's been nice to do the food packaging events and see each other. And we've been doing those with 6 foot distance and, you know, wearing our masks, and while not fun, it's all doable. Yes, Janine.
So Christy, and I'm not sure if Brett was going to bring this up, But in regards to us writing anything down, that is not recommended.
Oh, okay.
You can send out the link to the CDC guidelines because they are ever evolving. And so my recommendation is that you send out the state link to the guidelines for gathering of people, because again, depending on what you're doing, there's a whole bunch of different ones. And if it changes next week, then we're keeping up with it.
Okay, so you said 3 people in the elevator, no more than 2 people in the bathroom, 50% capacity. So what's 50%
that's all in there
in Kiwanis Hall?
That's all in the, yes, it's all in the CDC because it depends on the number of stalls. It's different for the bathrooms downstairs. So I'm saying instead of doing that, we can we'll put a sign on the bathroom to help with that. But if they change,
yeah. All I'm saying is don't make us do the math because that's not fair.
Okay.
That's
We'll
what
put signs in the bathroom. We'll put signs on the door, no more than 3 people at a table.
No, I think Janine, what she was asking, what is the capacity of Kiwanis Hall right now?
Right. What's 50% of that?
300.
300.
3.
So we can have 150 people in Kiwanis Hall? That's not what you told us before.
That's if we take the middle wall out.
Okay. With 3 people per table?
Yes.
So how many is that with 3 people per table?
150.
Okay, I just want to make sure. It sounds like a lot of people.
How many tables is that?
Well, if you imagine when we do the veterans lunch and stuff, full capacity is 300. So imagine imagine the room is set up for the veterans lunch, but now instead of 6 people per table or 7 people per table, it's only 3.
Okay.
That's it. It's just using every single table we have.
But aren't those people a lot closer together than what the recommended guidelines are of having some distance?
Actually, Neil, in regards to the table, they're not as you're thinking because the people are back to back. So it's not like when people, but yes, they would be close. So then if, 70 people in between 2 rooms, we would definitely be spread out.
Okay. Okay, so at our typical meetings, we usually have between what, 40, 50
and
people?
60.
Yeah,
50,
sometimes 60. So I think to start out, we'll probably have people RSVP that they're coming so we can at least get a head count and know what to expect. And then as we go, unless we know we have a really big, because we usually know when the meetings are going to attract a lot of people to show up, then, we're going to have to gauge and figure out which ones we need RSVPs for. And Pier 22 has offered to do box lunches. Dawn, I think Dawn has her hand up. Dawn?
I don't know if Brett wanted to go first. I saw you raise your hand before me.
I'll go after you, Dawn.
Okay. I understand the reasoning behind not having a bunch of stuff in writing as far as changes and guidelines and that sort of thing. But I wonder with the RSVPs, if we can also have a reminder to people that if they're exhibiting any symptoms or if they've been in contact with someone else who has tested positive in the last 14 days or however you want to put it together, I think just reminding people, stay home if you're sick, stay home if you've been exposed to someone else who's sick. Because I think as much as people want to get together, you also want people to remember that if they've had any of those exposures or they themselves have symptoms, that they need to stay home. And I get that that's common sense, but I think it's important to reinforce it maybe at the time that people are making their reservation.
Oh, that's a good idea. We can add that to the email that goes out. Brett?
What was the reason why we shouldn't have something in writing? Because my comment was going to be, if we have a plan, submit that plan to the health department to get their, I don't want to say approval, but their recommendation so that we can move forward, especially for those people who may have a little bit of concern about, gathering again.
So Brett, I met with Jennifer last week specific to everything we're doing in the theater. Okay. And she goes, and I will say these are her words, the CDC has come out with very specific, and easy to read guidelines.
That's all she's going to tell us.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
And I get Janine not wanting it in writing. I just don't want to be responsible for the math. And then her telling me I'm wrong.
Yeah, now Brett, we did tell Jennifer about the Kiwanis and the hybrid meetings. I did tell her about the shows we're getting ready to do in October. And what she did say was, that all sounds good. You're covering all the bases the CDC has asked you to.
Okay, thank you for that update.
But I don't think she'll put it in writing.
Okay.
I have a question. The CDC keeps flipping back and forth on some. Less confidence in them than I used to have. So, and I understand why people don't want to put things in writing. That's, there's a legal liability there. But I thank you all for exploring this, because it's something that we're all adults and we will do the reasonable thing and take the appropriate precautions. But I'm not convinced the CDC these days is the last word on protecting us from diseases.
Karen, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad that Brett is smiling, because there is one recommendation the CDC does say all the time, and that is that if you are mature in age, they don't recommend that you gather. And there is an age, and that may be a large portion of our audience for Kiwanis members.
I'm it.
I know. And so I don't want to say on this call, you know, that's going to have to be up to each individual. That's why I think maybe it would be good for everybody to read the guidelines so they have their own comfort level. You are right. They do change almost every other day. But they still are recommending people who are mature in age do not attend public gatherings.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why, Karen, we said we're gonna have both. So, you know, if you want to participate from home, you can. If you are from the office, you can. If you feel comfortable going to the meeting at the theater, then come to the meeting at the theater. And, you know, each one of us has to consciously make a decision for ourselves and our own health. And, you know, I'm protective of every single one of you.
Well, you know, we all have to be flexible but mindful of risk. I love the phrase mature in age. that has definitions, all sorts of other definitions, variations to it. But anyway, and Neil has been very specific. If you're over 64, you can't be volunteering.
So, Christy,
Right?
and this might be more Janine. What we're doing today, I guess, is just having the discussion to see what the intent is from the group, and I think Mac's going to be able to set it up for a vote, so you can indicate whether you have the intention of going to a meeting or not. That would then give us a number of how many would probably attend. Is there a minimum number that we need to make it feasible?
I don't know that there's a minimum number, but it's, you know, there's only 3 of us that want to meet in person or are comfortable meeting in person. We may want to wait a little longer. If there's 15, 20 of us, then that might be different.
Okay.
So we just need to get an idea of how many people would be comfortable meeting in person or not.
All right. So Mac can set up a poll.
Yeah, so let me do this. Well, let's go ahead and let let Dawn go ahead and give her presentation, and I will put up, I'll figure out how to get my poll to work here, and then we'll do it before we leave. How's that?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so the next part of our presentation today, you know, Dawn had presented at the board meeting. She's been researching for with the youth services committee, and they have a couple of studies that they've been looking at. And when she explained it at the board meeting, a lot of us, I got a lot of emails saying, hey, really, she should explain it to the whole club. And this is a beginning of a conversation. So this is not the end of you guys hearing this. So Dawn, this is kind of a kickoff of telling you what's out there, some of the studies that are going on with our kids in the school system, and some of the disparities that are in our school system, to give us some ideas of where we can get more involved. So Dawn, with that, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Thank you, Christy. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all and share a little bit about what's going on in the world of child development and kind of some of the educational disparities that exist. And Mac, you're going to have to enable me as a participant to share my screen because it says that I'm disabled from that. If you want to go ahead and set that up. But what I wanted to do today is just to give you some data that's been put out in the public realm with regards to some educational disparities. And one comes from the Florida Chamber of Commerce, and it's called the Florida Gap Map. And the other one is through the Florida, the Tampa Bay Partnership, which is really data that's more localized. And for those of you that don't follow this on a regular basis, I think that you might be surprised by the information. For those that work in this arena, it may not be new to you. But I just really wanted to give you the opportunity to see some of the data in part of an ongoing conversation about what's happening with education and what's the role potentially that Kiwanis can play in that. So I will give links to Mac on these particular reports so that if anybody wants to go in and dive deeper, you'll be able to do that. He'll put that in the next newsletter. But the first one is this Florida Gap Map. And I don't expect that you'll be able to see all the particulars on here. It's really just to give you an overall visual of Manatee County. But what this was is reading scores and looking at rates of poverty in our community, particularly for youth, and then how their reading scores are in terms of third grade. And many of you have heard about the third grade reading initiative and the ability to ensure that kids by third grade are on grade level, because that's the change of being able to learn to read and then using that reading to learn. And studies show that if kids are not reading on grade level by third grade, their chances of staying on track and being successful academically through the rest of their years are very challenging. And what you'll see on this map, even though you can't see all of the numbers, is that we've got some particular pockets where reading scores are really low. And so when you see this number 29 that's on here, I'm gonna see if I can use a little pointer thing to make it easier to see. This 29 over here is at Tillman Elementary. And what it represents is that only 29% of students at that elementary school in third grade are reading on grade level in third grade. So that's a pretty staggering statistic. You'll see other numbers like 34, 39. You'll see some pockets where they're doing much better, especially if you get further out east or out on Anna Maria, you'll see that their scores are better. But I have to tell you, just looking at the numbers overall, it's really sad not to see numbers that are in the 80s, 90s, and 100%. Because quite frankly, if our kids aren't reading on grade level and being successful by third grade, that's a sad statement for our community that they are having that much of a struggle. But I'll also tell you that in this inner corridor is where you're going to find the elements of poverty and educational gaps, and any type of more in-depth analysis that you do is going to show you that there's particularly 10 Title I schools that are made up in the Manatee County United Way effort that are part of what's called the big plan, because these are the schools that are struggling the most. And what I did is I took the next piece of this data to look at reading scores by school, and I sorted it by those that had the lowest scores. And what you'll see here is that the very beginning of this, in terms of third grade reading, just for girls elementary school, only has 15% of their kids able to read on grade level at third grade. It's not a huge surprise when you think about the fact that a lot of girls that go to Just for Girls have already struggled academically for a variety of reasons, many that are trauma-based. And so the traditional school model has not worked for them, and their parents are moving them into this type of a school in order to try to help get them back on track. But then you'll see Daughtry Elementary, Rogers Garden, Visible Men Academy, which is a private charter school, Manatee Elementary, Oniko, and Tillman, as I mentioned earlier. They're all right at that bottom, if you will, in terms of reading scores, all under 30% of kids reading on grade level by third grade. And unfortunately, it's not highlighted in here to be able to see the numbers of kids. So it may be hard for you to see, but at Daughtry Elementary in third grade, there's 127 students in third grade at Daughtry that are not reading on grade level. So when you see 18%, that might not mean a lot to you, but if you see that's 127 kids, that's kind of a big red flag to me in terms of where kids are struggling. And you might recall that both Daughtry and Rogers had some significant challenges a couple of years ago where the schools were going to be taken over by the state if they didn't improve their scores for reading and math. And so while they're making great strides to provide better outcomes there, we still have a lot of work to do. But what I want to do now is flip from that gap map over to this regional equity report, because this is specific to Tampa Bay as a region, as well as breaking down by counties. And it's also breaking down by ethnicity. And we've had some past conversations with regards to racial equity and inclusion. And I think it's really important when we look at our children that we also look at where the gaps are in terms of how kids are doing and disproportionate success in terms of their abilities to meet their academic goals. So in the Tampa Bay region, again, this is looking at the third grade reading level. Overall, the region only has 55% of students achieving that goal of passing with the third grade reading, being on grade level. And that's kind of not a good thing, because you think about it, that's half the kids in third grade throughout the region, the Tampa Bay region, that are not meeting that indicator. But from there, they break it down by counties. And this is really where you see people's eyes open, because if you look at Manatee County and you look at all students in third grade, we're at 51% of them achieving that reading level. That's not a good indicator. We're at the bottom of all the counties that are surveyed on here. However, when you break it down by race, you'll see that our white students are at a 71% achievement rate, whereas our Black students are only at 30%. More than half, or less than half, of their Black counterpart students in the same classrooms are not achieving that indicator. And when you look at our Hispanic and Latino population, you'll see they don't fare much better. They're at 34% achievement. And then when you look at just poverty alone, regardless of race, you'll see that Manatee County only has 38% of students that are living in poverty that are making this academic gain in third grade. So this is something where we should not see Manatee County at the bottom of the list, quite frankly. And we have to really think about what are the systems in place and what are the challenges that our students are facing that are keeping them from succeeding academically in these areas. From there, we also looked at high school graduation rates. And this is considered an on-time graduation rate, which shows that kids starting in 9th grade, those that will complete on time and graduate in 4 years from high school, 86% of students throughout the Tampa Bay region hit that mark. But then when you break it down by races, you'll see that there are quite a lot of disparities in there. In Manatee County, we have an 83% on-time graduation rate. For our white students, they're faring a little bit better at 88.7% graduation rate on time. And then for our Black students, it goes down to 75%. And for our Hispanic and Latino, it's 77%. Another important indicator is to think about what happens to kids that either drop out of school or finish school but then aren't working. And this is called disengaged youth. And so when you look at it from a regional perspective and you say, well, what percentage of 16 to 24-year-olds are not working and are not in school? You'll see that there's about 13% as a region that fit in that category. However, when you bring that down into looking at particular groups, you'll see that in Manatee County, we're at 12.5%, which is better than the overall range. For white students, we've got about 11% that are disengaged. For their Black counterparts, we have 19% that are disengaged. For Hispanic and other races, we've got 13% and 9%. So it does cause you to ponder what happens when kids disengage. And why do they get to a point where they feel that there's not an opportunity to really participate in society? And what can we as a society do to better leverage our resources to help our kids succeed from early on all the way through high school and even into college? And then the last indicator I wanted to share with you is about child poverty. In an overall Tampa Bay region, almost 21% of all students are living in poverty, and that's just in the last 12 months. When you break it down by ethnicities, you'll see that Manatee County has almost 21% of children that are living in poverty. When you break it down by race, it's 9.7% that are white, 35% that are Black. Asian, we haven't talked a lot about, but there's a fairly large percentage of Asian children living in poverty at almost 25%, and then 33% in our Hispanic and Latino. Other would be a mixture of races, and those are at 23.7%. But if you think about our migrant population in Manatee County, and especially if you correlate that back to pockets of areas in Title I schools like Daughtry Elementary, for example, and you start looking at the numbers of students that live in poverty that come from minority backgrounds and that are not succeeding academically, it's almost like this perfect storm of how will those kids succeed when they have all of these things working against them. And I'm not placing blame on anybody, I'm just sharing data and getting you thinking about it and the impacts that it may have. And before I move on to one of the things that Kiwanis is doing in response to this, I thought it would be great to just share a little bit from a quote from Nelson Mandela, who is just so incredibly brilliant. But he said, an educated, enlightened, and informed population is one of the surest ways of promoting the health of a democracy. So we know that there's much work that needs to be done. And we know that Kiwanis has amazing, wonderful people who can be part of that solution. And so it's important to understand what the problems are and kind of take the blinders off, so to speak, in order to really be able to create a lasting, impactful change. And so with that, I wanted to just talk very briefly about the Bringing Up Grades program. This is a program by Kiwanis International. It's called BUG for short. So if you ever hear somebody talking about the BUGS program, you'll know they're talking about bringing up grades. And this is an awesome opportunity that Youth Services is going to engage in right away. In fact, Sharon just got our packets today of the information so that we can start getting this into the hands of teachers in our community. And we're going to, start kind of working towards helping kids to bring up their grades. And this is specifically for kids in elementary school. And they set goals. This is a perfect time to start it because they're just getting their first report cards, progress reports, and seeing how they're faring in terms of academic losses, most likely from last year to this year, just because of everything we've been dealing with. But it gives them an opportunity to set their own goals. They're SMART goals, so they're achievable, they're time bound. They really are making sure that the kids understand how to set a goal. And then they work with peers in their classroom, so they get buddied up and they encourage each other through that semester to work towards those goals. At the end, they're recognized with those that were able to meet their goals. We also have discussions in regards to those that didn't quite make the goal and what they might think they could do differently the next time around. They're held accountable to one another, and then they celebrate when they reach those achievements. There are clubs all across the country, Kiwanis clubs, that have been doing this program, and our district governor has made this a priority in our area. And there's a challenge out for everyone to adopt at least one Title I school. And we've been in discussions for some time now with Manatee Elementary School, who has a 91% minority population and 100% economically disadvantaged students. So we've targeted that school as an area to pilot this program with the hopes that we'll be able to expand it out beyond just one school to multiple. So that's just one simple way that we can help. We also talked about opportunities for volunteers to get involved. Obviously, those have to be done in a virtual platform right now for safety reasons, but we really see that there's an opportunity here to support our kids. And again, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and there'll be much more to come, but I hope that I was able to wet your whistle a little bit, and hopefully you learned something new in regards to what's happening with the educational disparities in our region and in Manatee County.
Thanks, Dawn.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So
I don't know if Sharon has the materials with her. I'd have to find her in this sea of people. She was so excited to have everything come in today so that we'll be able to share that. Oh, there she is.
See?
You guys see her? She's holding up one of the packets. Is that the bumper sticker, Sharon? That's awesome. There's even a booklet that goes out to parents to tell them about the program so that they can encourage their students and know what goals they've been setting and make sure that they're helping them to achieve it. Very cool.
And so a big thank you to Sharon and Dawn for all of the work getting this ready to come out with the bug program. I know some of you probably remember that this used to be a really big thing for Lou Files, and we kind of felt that it was very appropriate to start doing it again in his honor. And this is going to be a good thing for the school. So I hope all of you get involved and participate in it and help to support it. Thank you, Dawn. So more to come later. We're going to share more. We're going to see if we can find some experts behind some of these studies to come and share with us too, so we all can make sure we really understand what's going on and how to best help with the issue at hand. I wonder if Mac's ready.
Yep.
Or if I should stall.
Nope.
You want to go ahead and put the survey up for everyone to answer? So based upon the guideline protocols discussed today, would you be willing to meet in person at Kiwanis Hall? Yes or no? Just click your answer and submit. In the meantime, while he's gathering that, Janine did share she found on Kiwanis. Did you find this on Kiwanis International's website? Okay, she's on the phone now. So I think it's on the website. It says Kiwanis International does not mandate meeting guidelines. However, Kiwanis requires clubs follow the World Health Organization, the CDC, state and local guidelines for public gatherings. For Kiwanis clubs that meet in restaurants and venues, Kiwanis International urges you to meet with the facility to understand all guidelines for public meetings. So that was off of Kiwanis International's website.
I'll help you stall, Chrissy. This is Ed Nicholas. I just want to say how fortunate we are to have somebody like Dawn Stanhope in our community that helps us shine a light on such an urgent need. You know, by third grade, these kids are just so much behind the 8 ball that it's almost impossible to catch up, and your heart breaks for them. And so thank you, Dawn, for shining a light on that and for energizing our club to do what we can to help these children be who they need to be and to provide them the opportunity that every other child has in our community. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. You know, I think we don't realize, you know, when I saw those statistics, I was very surprised. I shouldn't have been, but I was. So that's why we figured sharing it with everybody would be a good thing. So I think
Looks like 22 people are willing to have a live meeting.
okay, well, that's good. I think that's enough of a percentage
No,
that
that's 2/3.
forward.
2/3 of what we have here, so.
Yeah. And I know Neil put in the chat that he's had a few people tell him outside who aren't here today that they would be willing, they want to meet in person. So we'll keep charging forward and get more information out to everyone. And stay tuned.
All right. Well, thank you, Christy.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mac, for your on-the-spot technological support. You are always awesome when it comes to that. And Dawn and Jean for your presentations. And yeah, I agree with Ed. Dawn, you are incredible. I mean, you learn to read by third grade, and then you read to learn after that. So if you're not reading, you're in a bad spot. All right, you guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the history, Gilbert. And we will see you all next week.